you all for coming today. My name is Ramya. I am the Citizen Science Coordinator for the Biscayne Community Foundation. Today, for our monthly lecture, we have Sofia Mesa from Debris Free Oceans speaking, and she is going to talk to you guys about the plastic pollution and ideas for what you can do and how you can help and all of those related things. Key challenge students, you need to sign in before you leave. I have the sign-up sheet right here. It's not the one on the back table. I will put it out in about half an hour, and just make sure you sign it when you leave. Also, if anybody has a cell phone, please turn it to silent. And if you need to take a call, please take it out in the hall. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sofia. Sofia, it's all yours.
Hello everyone, my name is Sofia. I am from the local nonprofit Debris Free Oceans, and I'm just here to talk to you guys a little bit about plastic pollution, kind of the background of how we've kind of got started in this problem, and just different things that you could do in each of your daily lives to be a part of the solution. So to get started, this is a picture of our galaxy. This is the Milky Way galaxy, and in the year 2015, scientists estimated that there are over 400 billion stars all wrapped up in this galaxy. This is kind of to just introduce, a big number to kind of put into perspective how big the problem of plastics in our world really is. So in that same year, scientists also estimated that there are 13 times the amount of stars in our galaxy as there are pieces of plastic in the ocean, which means that's about 4.25 trillion pieces of plastic in our ocean. And this is just a visual showing, how some countries are faced with this problem. We don't really see this directly in the US a lot, but this is a subject of all of our trash, all of the waterways, and how interconnected they are. So in 2050, scientists also estimated that there will be more pieces of plastic in the ocean by weight than fish, which is kind of a jarring statistic because when we think of the ocean, when we think of what belongs, usually we consider fish above plastic, typically. So again, to kind of put this into perspective, make it more relevant for all of us sitting here today, we are right now in Key Biscayne, and that is one of our national parks. We're connected to Biscayne National Park, and that's one of two national parks in South Florida. We have Biscayne National Park and Everglades National Park. And in order to have a national park, we have basically dedicated, this is land that is so precious and so valuable to us and has ecosystems and animals that are so unique that we have devoted and said that we're going to protect this land. But the interesting thing is both of these parks are located along our coastlines, along our shore, which means that they're subject to all of the currents that are coming to South Florida and washing up onto our shore, which also means everything that the currents carry, which in some cases are plastic and other debris. So this is actually from Biscayne National Park in Elliott Key. I don't know if any of you guys have been there, but it is completely uninhabited. It is an island 9 miles offshore. Nobody lives here, but all of this trash exists here. This is a picture from Elliott Key. So can anyone kind of just think as to why this happens? Because if no one lives here, no one's really being careless and just leaving things. It's actually a really interesting situation that accounts for over 80% of all of the trash that we see washed up on our shores. If you also remember, in that picture, the majority of all those items were pieces of plastic, and that's because it's not just trash in general that we have to be worried about, it's plastics because they basically last forever. This is it goes into how plastics are created. So in case you didn't know, plastics are petroleum-based. They're made from oil and chemicals the same way that gas is petroleum-based. Basically, in their actual composition, it is impossible for a piece of plastic to completely break down. So this goes more into it. So if you see something like an apple core, something that is natural, it's grown on trees, once it falls to the ground, it can break back down. It's called composting, and it can break back down into nutrients and replenish the soil there. But if that were to happen with something like a straw, if you leave a straw in a natural environment, it will never break down. It will never go away. It will just break up into smaller pieces. It will break apart into smaller and smaller pieces. Sometimes pieces so small that you can't see it with your eye. And it will exist in the natural ecosystem for basically the rest of all of our lives, and for numbers estimated to be in the couple hundreds of years. So again, plastics are not biodegradable. They will never break down, they just break apart. So also what I was mentioning earlier with our currents and our waterways, and how basically our trash, it's not just Key Biscayne's trash, it's not just South Florida's trash, it's all of our trash, so the entire world. This is one of the most uniting things because we are subject to trash from all across different continents. The ocean sees no boundaries. So in this way, this is a map of the United States, and all of the beautiful bright colors are all of the local waterways running throughout the United States. So anytime like a straw, a fork, if it's plastic and it's thrown into the garbage can or it's taken in a garbage truck, that garbage truck hits a speed bump, or if it rains a little bit and that trash ends up on the street and in a storm drain, those storm drains all lead to local waterways for us, and for us that's Biscayne Bay, so right in our backyards. And this is basically a map showing again how anything that could start basically any point of the US will end up in our oceans. So no matter where it starts, it could be Colorado, it could be New York, it could end up in a surrounding waterway. And that's over 80% of all the trash we see in beach cleanups and we see washed up on our shores. Those are all from just human error and loops in our system of trying to throw things away. So as I talk more into this, maybe you'll start to realize that when we throw things away, there is no away, it's all shared. So to kind of break this down into just more digestible chunks of information, there are three main target areas that plastics impact. So first are marine life and land animals. So if you love your pets, if you love our beautiful sea creatures in the ocean, this is something relevant for you. It also impacts our personal health, so the health of humans and just our overall ecosystem and way of life, and it also impacts Miami's economy, so our ability to make money, be a profitable city, and just keep working and keep thriving. So the first way is through entanglement. This impacts our marine life, because if you can kind of connect all of these sea creatures, sea creatures and birds, they all do not have opposable thumbs. So unlike us, if we were ever to get trapped in something, if we're trying to take something off of us, we can easily do that. But if a sea turtle were to swim into a plastic bag or a six-pack holder or whatever the case is, once it's trapped, it's kind of stuck. So in that case, it could prevent them from being able to swim properly. And with a lot of these marine animals, if they stop swimming, their blood stops circulating, it just stops other basic symptoms that they need in order to survive and just function. So in this case, we have numerous species that just get trapped and entangled. And what's an interesting case, and people always ask me, is how this bottom left picture happened. So basically, this turtle was a hatchling, so much smaller than it is right now. And then it was swimming in the ocean and likely got entangled in this six-pack holder. So that's the same holder that contains like soda cans together, like a six-pack of soda cans. And then as the turtle developed and started to grow, the actual plastic constricted the turtle and didn't allow it to fully form its shell. So if you're just wondering how that happened. And all of these other situations, sometimes we see videos of like a scuba diver finding the turtle at the last second, has a straw in its nose, and it pulls it out and saves the day. But if we really think about how many marine species we have existing in our ocean and how many scuba divers are always there at the right place and the right time, it kind of makes this problem a lot more significant and something that is likely to not get solved. So ingestion, this is kind of another way that also impacts us humans, especially if you consume fish. These plastics and different materials, when they're in the ocean environment, they just absorb all the smells and basically all of the other characteristics of items in the ocean environment, of organisms in the ocean environment. So that's why a lot of these sea creatures and birds, they consume plastic, not because they're stupid, but because they actually think it is their food, because it smells, looks, and tastes just like fish. It tastes just like their food. So in this case, we have currently over 90% of all seabirds have consumed plastic, and that is expected to increase to 99% by 2050. So again, this is in the case of plastics. If they're in the marine environment for a long period of time, they start to do this thing called biofouling, which means that a slimy layer of algae will start to grow on the plastic, and that just further emphasizes how much they smell like things that are naturally in the ocean, and just confuse and completely, camouflage themselves from something that is toxic and harmful to these animals and will prevent them from digesting and just fully breaking down any food for nutrients. It's now something that looks and smells delicious to them. So this is another way that it impacts our animals, but in a different perspective. So these are all land animals. And this is always interesting because normally when we think of plastic pollution, we just think of our oceans and fish and all those creatures, but just goes to show that this is such a global problem that affects all of us and all of our furry friends too. So in the case of animals, they can likely ingest plastic bags. Camels in the United Arab Emirates have actually been passing away from ingesting plastic bags. Over 50% of the camels there have been having that problem. And in the bottom left picture, that is actually of a gentleman carrying a camel's stomach full of trash. So in those situations, it's kind of unavoidable, and even in remote places that we think aren't impacted by this problem, they are. It just may not be in a way that we immediately see. So back to us lovely humans and what we choose to put on our dinner plates. It can also impact the way our bodies function. So like I mentioned earlier, plastics are made from oil and chemicals, so they have toxins in them. And when a fish eats a plastic pellet or a plastic piece, the impacts increase as the food chain increases. So this is like basic biology. When any animal or sea creature consumes something that is toxic to them and they keep getting eaten and the food chain keeps getting bigger, the impacts also keep getting bigger. So if we think of humans, we're usually at the top of these food chains. So if you eat fish, this can be a problem when your fish has previously consumed plastic and those toxins are in its flesh, which you consume, and then those toxins are then in you. So there have been multiple studies all increasing on the impact of plastics in our systems, but basically the consensus is they're not good for us, they're not something that we should be ingesting, and something that we should definitely monitor and keep a closer eye on. So this goes more into the chemistry of it. So there's lots of POPs, so persistent organic pollutants, and this basically just shows virtually their impact. So like something like DDT and mercury, we know that if something eats that and has those toxins in their body and then gets eaten, again, the impacts go up as well. So this is just something to keep in mind with not only ingestion, but just exposure to the processing of plastic and exposure to all the different ways that plastics kind of trickle into our lives. So down to the economics, all the money-making relationships to plastic production. So as a coastal city, as a coastal state, we benefit a lot from our beautiful beaches. Like, how many of you guys love going to the beach and love going to Key Biscayne and just hanging out, going in the water? Yeah, you can raise your hand, feel comfortable doing so. Yeah, I do too. So I love my beach. I love walking along the sand and, maybe picking up shells or picking up beautiful things that you find, sea glass. But how many of you guys, you can raise your hand as well, have found pieces of plastic ever on the beach? Yeah, that's a lot of you. So this is something that is directly in our backyard, something that we can see, and it's something that also impacts our livelihood, so our ability to make money and be a profitable city. There have been studies all confirming something that sounds kind of obvious, that tourists, they do not want to go to a beach that is dirty, basically. There have been studies everywhere from New Jersey, South Africa, to California, all confirming that tourists will pay a lot more money to go to a beautiful beach versus a dirty one. So I don't know if you also are aware of this, but we have over 4 million full-time residents in Miami. And to kind of put that into perspective, we have 12 million visitors every single year. So that's 3 times as many people just come and visit and go to our lovely beaches. So in order to make money, whether that be real estate, hotels, restaurants, all these businesses are dependent on the fact that we are a beautiful city to go and showcase. So it's just something to keep in mind that people don't want to hang out on a dirty beach. So in order to keep existing and profiting as Miami has, we have to clean up our beaches. We can take a breather now because I know this has all been a little negative, a little, Debbie Downer. You're like, oh, this is what the talk is about. It's all just about making me feel bad for everything that I'm doing. Well, that's not the case, actually. I'm just trying to put everything into perspective, and if you can't tell, I'm also very young, so I also learned this quite recently, and it's not something that has been around, it has been around for all of my lifetime, but maybe not for some of you here today. So plastics were really introduced in the 1950s, single-use plastics, and it was this cool, shiny thing that's like, hey, you can use something, throw it away, never have to clean it or worry about it or do anything, and it will go away, right? That's fun. It's nice to just live your life and not have to think about, oh, I have to wash the dishes, I have to take out the trash, I have to do all of this. No, it's just clean, easy, out of state, out of mind, all of that fun stuff. But in reality, if you haven't learned anything from what I've talked about before, I want you to walk away that plastics do not go away. Trash does not go away. It will stay with us. So this idea of throwing things away and throwaway lifestyles and how much time we will free up in the long term, that doesn't make sense because it will impact either you personally, animals that you have with you, it will impact your grandchildren, it will impact your children. It all just stays with us on the planet. So to just keep that in mind and to not be discouraged because this is still relatively new, 1955, not that long ago. So again, this is to kind of just put into perspective how much this has increased throughout the years. We were at 0 one time. We could go back to 0, hopefully in the future at some point. So don't be discouraged. This is something that has been increasing throughout the years, but it's not something that has been forever. So to kind of break away from this mindset of depending on plastics, we have to rethink how we think about plastics. So how we think about anything, really. We typically, as a society, depend on this idea of a linear system of how we use items. So we produce something, we make the plastic, we use it, we consume whatever we need with it, we use it, we consume it up, and then we discard it, we throw it away. So this is very linear. There's nothing really circling back or funding it again. It's just create, use, destroy, get rid of, go away. But there are opportunities to not do this. So in order to fully understand this, we can't depend on it. In order to keep producing, consuming, and discarding, we're going to have infinite resources so we can keep replacing everything that we discard. And we're going to have to be able to keep throwing away to infinity, to keep just tossing things in the trash and not have to worry about that. But we also know that's not true. So I'm going to disprove those two things right now. So to assume we have infinite resources means that we can keep producing plastics. We can keep producing single-use plastics. And we know that's not true because oil is not renewable. Once we run out of oil, we are out. That's it. We're done. No more. So we just can't keep replacing things because oil is a fossil fuel and is in the ground. And we have estimates that we will be running out soon. We don't know exactly the date, but it is coming. So renewables are the future, and we have to look into how we can shift that mindset from something that we know we can run out of and we will run out of. And then assuming we have infinite disposal capacity completely ignores the fact that our landfills are filling up. So we are running out of space to put all this trash, because who of us wants to have a pile of trash in our backyard? I don't think any of us do. And so no one wants to live near landfills. No one wants to keep dedicating land to putting away things that nobody wants. And if you think about it in, real estate type of way, if we have a beautiful piece of land, wouldn't we want to develop and use it and utilize and make money from it versus putting things that are smelly and just don't look nice? So we're running out of landfills, and our main acceptor of recycling and our processor of recycling was China, and now they have stricter standards on accepting recycling. So they no longer accept any of the US or the world's recycling if it's above a contamination rate that we are constantly at. So we just can't keep sending it there. It's become too toxic for them. They don't want to deal with it, and we don't want to deal with it. So we also have to think about who's going to actually process recycling if it is something that is toxic and something that is harmful to people. Solution, fun part, good part. This is on a much lighter note, so I'm sure you guys have heard the 3 R's. Can you say them for me? What are the 3 R's? Reduce, reuse, recycle, correct. And I want to introduce 2 more to you. So reduce, reuse, recycle, we know, and also recapture and repurpose. So the idea of using waste as if it is something that does not exist as a waste. It is something that we can put back into our economy, depend upon, create new items from, but they're not really new because they're from old wasted products, but they're not waste anymore, so they are new to us in a new form. So with this new mindset, we have lots of opportunities for lots of different jobs, lots of different new systems, from nonprofits to educators. Hello, I'm an educator right now. Scientists, engineers, consumers. There are so many different growing opportunities to help with this problem with a solution.
Van Jones sucks.
I've been sucking on TV since I was 10.
Everywhere I could suck, I would suck.
I've sucked in over 90 countries.
Democrats, Republicans, independents, we all suck.
You know who else sucks?
Kendrick Sampson. I'm Kendrick Sampson, and I suck. We suck together.
Sure, I've sucked, but Eunice sucks even more.
Eunice sucks.
And I suck.
And I suck.
And I suck. When someone tweets, I suck, I'm like, I know.
Statistically speaking, most of us suck. Most of us suck every day.
Suck, suck, suck.
Suck. Today, you probably used one of these.
500 million plastic straws are used in this country every single day.
And many end up in the ocean, polluting water and killing sea life.
If we don't act now, by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish.
You know, like you're snorkeling, you look down, and you don't see fish, you see plastic. There's something you can do about it.
I will stop sucking.
I will stop sucking.
We will all stop sucking.
We will all stop sucking.
If you do.
Hashtag stop sucking.
So first thing that you can reduce is the amount of straws that you use and suck. So that's one of the first big items that you can easily cut out of your life. There are some people that depend upon straws for other health reasons. So that's completely okay. There are a lot of alternatives out there. If you do still want a straw, there are so many other reusable materials that are now made into straws. So anywhere from glass, bamboo, metal, there are silicone straws, anything that you could possibly imagine. So definitely look into that if you like boba tea like I do and do want a nice thick straw for your boba. But just again, to kind of put into perspective, remind you guys, straws are one of the most used items and talked about items in the plastic problem. They're not the whole problem, but they're definitely something small that you can address and definitely cut out of your life. So Miami actually uses over 700,000 plastic straws every single day, and that's the same amount to fill 127 school buses every single day in the US. So again, to kind of put into perspective, something if you don't need, just say no straw at a restaurant. If you don't want one, don't get one, and that's that. Plastic bags, plastic utensils, and plastic cups are other big ones. So again, reusables are always a great option. If you already have that plastic item, once you already own it, it's kind of hard to reduce that. So in that case, you can reuse it and just keep using it until it no longer works and keep taking advantage of something that's going to last forever regardless. So just keep on using that. Reusable bags, so that could be cloth, any other material. There's lots of bags that are sold out of recycled materials. That's a great thing to support as well. Plastic utensils, especially I know with school lunches, you normally get those little plastic packs of, it's like a spork and a knife and all that. So if you want to bring some from home, I'm sure you are more than welcome to. It's as simple as getting a cloth napkin, wrapping around some utensils you already have in your kitchen drawer and taking that with you. And that's for students, but also for non-students. I take some reusable utensils with me, sometimes just metal utensils that I put in my backpack, and I take that with me throughout. And that's an easy way to just avoid something that will only be used for about 2 seconds and then thrown out and stay in our environment forever virtually. And again, plastic cups, you guys, if you were one of the first 50 to come in, got a lovely stainless steel reusable tumbler. So that's something that you can keep using and depending upon throughout your life instead of something that is plastic and disposable. So I encourage you to take care of it, wash it, and bring it whenever you are in need of one. So reusing, something I touched upon a little bit. If you already have that plastic in your life, take advantage of it and keep on using it. So something from a Ziploc bag that you can, store pens in, use it for organization. You can there's so many infinite ways that we can keep these items from reaching a landfill or from reaching the ocean and from impacting the environment that way. So definitely encourage you to check out Pinterest. They have lots of great ideas for reusing things, especially with plastic cups. It's a simple organization hack. And if you are creative and want to paint them and make them, yours personally, that's something great too. So recycling. This is something that we definitely have to mention, but it is not a perfect solution. Recycling should be used and depended upon as a last resort. So something that you do after you have already reduced and reused all that you can. So in the world and in the US, we are really bad at recycling. We recycle only about 9%, historically, repeatedly, anything that we actually can recycle. So 9% out of everything we can recycle, which is really low. If you were to take an exam, come home, show it to your parents, and you got a 9% on your exam, that's like if you forgot to write your name on it. That's really bad. So definitely not something that we are doing well, but something that we can improve upon. Again, China no longer accepts our recyclables, so we kind of have to just be more efficient. And the first big thing that you can do is recycle right. So if you are gonna recycle, check out Miami-Dade's website. Each city, each county, we all have different recycling rules. So we all have different things that we actually can recycle and are encouraged to. And recycling, at least here in South Florida, Waste Management, they're for-profit. They're not a nonprofit. They're trying to make money. So the more things that you put in your recycling bin that can't be recycled, the less money they can make, the more time it takes for workers to sort through, the more energy, the more resources, everything all takes. So try to recycle right. Mainly aluminum cans are the best thing to recycle. They make the most money from it. They're basically infinitely recyclable. So if there's anything that you want to start depending upon, aluminum cans is something great. And then again, single-use plastic water bottles are recyclable as long as the mouth, the nozzle that you drink out of, is smaller than the base. So that goes for virtually any container of plastic. So that can be a laundry container if the mouth is smaller, but that's the biggest kind of gauge that you can use to make sure what you're recycling is actually recyclable and will be recycled. So again, no food contamination, no takeout containers, no plastic cups. This is a big one, no berry cartridges. So if you go to the grocery store and buy berries in those plastic containers, that's not recyclable here. So make sure you get informed on that. And here's another video about a woman that actually takes advantage and rethinks how we use items and depend upon them.
Every time you throw away a plastic bottle, it doesn't just disappear. It lives on for hundreds of years. And it's why tomorrow's hero, Miranda Wang, has come up with a solution that helps keep plastic waste from ruining our oceans.
Globally, only 8% of plastic packaging is being recycled. The majority of it is being landfilled, and a lot of it goes into the oceans. Frankly, our world hasn't been moving forward in innovating plastic recycling for the past decades. My name is Miranda Wang, and I'm 23 years old. I'm an entrepreneur and innovator, and I'm the co-founder of BioSelection. I've been working on developing innovations to solve the plastic problem ever since I was 17 years old. My high school best friend and I took a field trip to a waste transfer station in Vancouver, Canada, and we were just astounded by how much plastic packaging goes to the landfill. We actually don't know how long it takes for plastics to break down. There are numbers around the world saying it takes longer than 1,500 years. About half of the peninsula in the San Francisco Bay Area, every day 11 metric tons of this material is being recovered at our partner facility. That's about the same weight as about 3 to 4 commercial trucks. So imagine how much film it takes to make up that weight, considering each plastic bag only weighs about 3 to 5 grams. What we have developed is an innovative process, and this process can be used at large scales to process tons and tons of material around the world every day. We're using catalysts that can break down plastics by basically unlocking a mechanism that allows the plastic to have a chain reaction with itself. We are taking dirty plastics. Right now we're focusing on films that are not recyclable. We turn them into chemicals that are essential precursors for products such as nylon yarn, and also nylon resin that can be used to make products in the automotive and apparel industries. Right now we're able to achieve about 70% conversion from plastic waste material to these chemicals. My dream is to be able to see that something that's a sad piece of plastic that right now would go to the oceans or landfill could be used to make a brand new Patagonia jacket or a brand new pair of running shoes. When it comes to solving these massive world problems that we have, many of the answers are embedded in technology. There's so much creativity out there, so much knowledge in our world. I believe we were able to solve all of them if we tried.
So I don't know if you heard, but Miranda Wang, she was 17 when she found out and thought about this discovery with her best friend from high school. So that's a 17-year-old, not even in college, still in high school, being exposed to this problem and really thinking creatively about a solution for it. So I know we have partly a young audience out there, and to just know that you guys can very tangibly be part of a solution like this. There are so many jobs and so many markets now opening up to try to address this problem because it impacts every single one of us. So we all have the opportunity to get involved and to help and compensate for that. So this is kind of like a different little lens. Composting is also very important and something that we bring up just to take notice of solutions that are being implemented out there, but items that may be a little confusing in how they can be used and how they can be depended upon. So there are a lot of items that look like this, that are clear, transparent, plastic-looking items with like a green label saying compostable, great, like it's just like plastic, but better. But in most cases, items that look too similar to something that is plastic are actually out of a material that can only be composted if you send it to an industrial facility. So we do not have one in South Florida. So if you ever use something like this and it says it's compostable, if you throw it away in the trash can, like what is most accessible for us, a trash can versus an actual composting facility, because there is none here, it will basically react exactly like plastic. So this is something that is being exposed and introduced as a perfect solution, but that's just greenwashing. That's not true marketing. So just be aware when something is compostable. If you have a compost tumbler, great. Then that means that you can compost, fruit and veggie scraps, eggshells, things like that, and just be aware of this marketing. If it says in industrial facilities anywhere, that virtually means that it's something that will not break down in any other way unless you send it away somewhere, which is likely something that we do not do just because it takes resources and time and effort to do. So just be aware of that. And moving forward, so there's lots of groups that are focusing on composting, such as Back to Earth in South Florida. So although we don't have a facility, there are options out there, especially if you live around this area. It's like a drop-off composting service. You can get a bucket. You can put items that actually can be composted, which that's a good graph explaining things that you can compost, and just get involved in that as well. Because if we send food items to a landfill, similar to plastic, they actually are covered up. So in a landfill, everything gets stacked up very high and things get compressed, and there's not a lot of oxygen or sunlight or anything that would actually help the food break down. So how I mentioned earlier that apple core can break down, an apple can break down, it has to have all the nutrients. So it has to have sunlight, it has to have access to air, oxygen, but in a landfill, it will not get that. So it actually won't break down, and in the process, it will create methane, which is a greenhouse gas, and which is a lot more harmful to our planet than composting it. So to look into that as well, because that's something that's a big part of the problem. Okay, so back to Miranda Wang's style of things. So recapturing, she takes items and reverts them back into their initial polymers and is attempting to create new products from that. And this is a gentleman that is doing a similar thing. He is focusing on the recapture side. So his name is Mike Biddle, and he started a company called MBA Polymers. And he is basically paid to go to a landfill, collect all of their plastics. He takes it off their hands, and they pay him to do this because, like I mentioned earlier, landfills are piling up. There's not enough space. They're trying to make more space. So he helps them with that problem by taking some with him. And then he converts them back into nurdles, which are pre-production plastic pellets. There are these small little like beige or transparent beads, and they basically are the precursor to all of our single-use plastics. You put them in a mold, heat them up, and they turn into, a spoon, they turn into a toothbrush, they turn into all these different items. They're the components of them. So he turns them into nurdles, and then he sells them to make profit, to make recycled plastics. So this gentleman is very intelligent. He's making money two ways: by recapturing items that are no longer wanted and are laid waste in a landfill, and then recycling them into a new material to create more recycled plastic. So it is recycled plastic, but it is, instead of getting oil or new resources that we are running out of, it is taking what we already have and taking advantage of that, which is a great thing to do. So redesign, this is for more long-term materials. These are all companies that are devoted to taking either plastics or other materials and turning them into something that can then last a lifetime. So in the top left, that's actually of a Chilean company called Bureo, and they are over there. Chile, I don't know if you guys know, but is very much dependent on the fishing industry there. It's a coastal country, and so they're taking the fishing nets there and converting them into a material that is then used for skateboard decks, sunglass frames, and all these other materials that will have a huge lifetime compared to something like a fishing net, which will then be disposed of after it's been used. And actually, fishing nets are a big part of the problem. We have a great Pacific garbage patch of trash floating in the Pacific Ocean, and over 50% of everything that is there is fishing gear. So fishing line, fishing nets, rope used to catch fish, all of these other materials that are just abandoned by fishermen or are just end up there from the cycles we've talked about, from trying to get thrown away. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, how the fishing industry also impacts this problem. And so another company that's up here, down here is Waterlust. They're a local company. They're out of Erasmus, so the University of Miami students that are conducting research and also creating apparel made out of recycled plastics, and they're selling it. And it's turned into these beautiful leggings and sports bras and all these other new items that are just repurposing plastic, recycling it into something that can then have a lifetime and has these beautiful designs. They take big pictures. So they have like a whale shark design that's of a whale shark zoomed in. So your legs are like the pattern of a whale shark. It's very cool. So to just go to show how different companies are really just leaning into this aspect of taking items that would just be thrown away, not really considered as product to make a profit of, and just really taking advantage and in the end helping their bottom line, because what's the value of being able to sell something that is made out of materials that are virtually free or something that someone's trying to get rid of? And it's the same kind of concept. If you go to a garage sale, you can buy something for $1 or $2. It's because it's something that's unwanted, it's something that's undesired anymore. So that's kind of the relationship that they're having with these items. So this is something else that we've worked on, Plastic Free Miami Beach, with the city of Miami Beach, to just kind of showcase businesses that are, also taking part of this concept of moving away from single-use plastics and going to reusable. So we helped them launch this program, which certifies businesses based on a few tiers if they are completely single-use plastic free or how they fall on that scale. And we just try to encourage business and for people to go and support them. So again, I know this is a very overwhelming problem, but it is also something that we have the ability to impact in one way or another. So we all have a role. It is our responsibility to be responsible with our lives and to just leave the kind of impact that you would like to be proud of. So that can be just limiting your plastic consumption, it could be reducing your meat consumption, it could be just trying to, tread lighter, have a smaller carbon footprint, and just really taking pride in how you live and depend upon things, and just, making a future that is sustainable and able to be something that you would want, like your grandkids to be happy to live in and see that that's the way you lived as well. So I just want to thank you guys for everything, and to just, if you do want to contact us, we have a lot of beach cleanups, other types of events. We do talks at schools and all that fun stuff. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook, so if you want to stay involved, thank you. Also, if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to raise your hand. I can answer anything, all that.